What just happened at the Supreme Court is not just another legal setback for Donald Trump. It's the unraveling of a years-long delusion, a collapse of one of the core pillars that propped up his self-myth of economic genius. And in the middle of the night, when most Americans were asleep, he accidentally admitted the truth himself. At exactly 12:37 a.m., Donald Trump logged on to Truth Social and in a panic-filled rant, revealed more about his own legal defeat than any of his lawyers ever wanted him to say out loud. In that single post, he managed to confirm that the Supreme Court had been given the wrong numbers, that he expects to lose, and that his own legal team, led by Solicitor General John Sauer, was to blame. This wasn't the calm, strategic communication of a former president with a plan. This was the outburst of a man realizing that his greatest con, the illusion that tariffs made him a financial savior, was about to be stripped bare by the highest court in the land. For years, Trump bragged that his tariff policy was a masterstroke, that it forced other countries to pay America billions. He told his followers that tariffs were a form of tough love diplomacy, a way to punish China, balance trade, rebuild American manufacturing. But here's the uncomfortable truth he's always hidden. Tariffs aren't paid by foreign countries. They're paid by American businesses and consumers. Every dollar collected through tariffs is a dollar passed down to importers, to stores, to you. It's a tax plain and simple, and under the Constitution, only Congress can impose taxes. That's what this entire Supreme Court case is about. Trump tried to stretch the International Economic Emergency Powers Act to claim that as president, he could set tariffs on hundreds of countries unilaterally without Congress. He claimed it was for national security. But everyone watching the hearings could see that even Trump-appointed justices weren't buying it. Chief Justice John Roberts, Neil Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett. Three names Trump once celebrated. Each tore holes through the argument. They asked the same fundamental question. If these tariffs raise trillions of dollars in revenue, how is that not a tax? And if it's a tax, where in the Constitution does it say the president can impose one? Trump's own Solicitor General, John Sauer, stumbled trying to answer. He claimed the tariffs were regulatory, not revenue-raising. He said they were meant to shape foreign behavior, not to fill the treasury. But then Trump himself kept bragging about the trillions we made. He'd post about dividends for the American people and massive profits from tariffs. Every time he said it, he destroyed his own case. He handed the justices the very ammunition they needed to say, "This is taxation without congressional approval." Trump didn't see it that way. He thought his bravado made him sound strong. But in court, that bravado became evidence of illegality. And now, in his 12:37 a.m. meltdown, he finally realized it. He blamed Sauer. He blamed his Justice Department. He claimed the court got the wrong numbers, but the numbers were his own, the same ones he bragged about on stage and online. In his post, Trump admitted that a negative decision from the Supreme Court could lead to an unwind of more than $3 trillion in tariffs. He said it would be insurmountable, a national security event. That's how desperate he's become, admitting in public that a legal loss would crash his own financial house of cards. But he doesn't see the irony. He's saying out loud that he built a national economic policy on an illegal foundation. The justices heard this too. During oral arguments, Justice Barrett asked a pointed question to the attorneys arguing against Trump's tariffs. If you win, how would the government even unwind this? Would the reimbursement process be chaotic? And the lawyer answered honestly, it would be complicated but not impossible. There are already administrative laws for this. Refunds could be issued. The government has dealt with big tariff reversals before. That exchange was critical. It showed Barrett wasn't worried about saving Trump's plan. She was preparing for the fallout once it struck down. And if Barrett, Roberts, and Gorsuch are all leaning that way, the majority is gone. Trump doesn't have the votes. The rest of the conservative bloc looked equally skeptical. Justice Kavanaugh, though polite, pressed Sauer hard on the limits of executive power. He said, imagine a president deciding he could cut off trade with any country, not just impose tariffs, but literally destroy trade relations. If the law gives him that much discretion, doesn't that violate the separation of powers? Even Justice Alito appeared uneasy with how broad Trump's claim was. The justices understood what was at stake. If they sided with Trump, they'd be giving every future president the power to act as an unelected tax collector. That's not how democracy works. But Trump's circle of loyalists didn't want to hear it. In the days after oral arguments, his surrogates flooded television networks with confidence. One advisor called the Supreme Court hearing the Super Bowl of trade. They said Trump was going to win. His press secretary went even further, claiming that tariffs had brought peace to the world and cut the deficit by $600 billion. It was pure theater. They were trying to shape public opinion before the ruling came down. But behind the curtain, the panic was real. The Treasury Secretary stumbled in an interview when asked if tariffs really brought in trillions. He admitted that they could over the course of the next few years, but quickly added that the real goal was to rebalance trade. That contradiction was fatal. If it's about trade, it's regulatory. If it's about money, it's a tax. You can't claim both. The Supreme Court justices know that, and they're not going to ignore it. That's why Trump erupted online. Every time his team cornered itself, he lashed out. When his lawyers fumbled a case, he blamed them. When his staff misread a poll, he fired them. Now he's doing it again, pointing fingers at John Sauer, the same lawyer who previously saved him in the Colorado ballot case and the immunity appeal. But loyalty to Trump is temporary. When things go south, everyone gets thrown under the bus. For Trump, this case is existential. If he loses it, doesn't just hurt his ego. It threatens the illusion that he's a brilliant dealmaker. Tariffs are one of the few policies he can still claim as his own creation. He's tied his brand to the idea that tariffs rebuilt America, that they filled the Treasury, that they proved he was smarter than every economist. But once the Supreme Court says those tariffs were unconstitutional, the story collapses. The money wasn't foreign tribute. It was a domestic tax masquerading as toughness. And that means the trillions he bragged about came straight from American pockets. Economists have been saying this for years. The tariffs hurt farmers, small businesses, manufacturers. They raised prices on imported materials. They triggered retaliatory tariffs from other countries, costing U.S. exporters billions. And yet Trump insisted it was a success. He even announced something called the External Revenue Service, a fictional agency he claimed would replace the IRS by taxing other nations instead of Americans. He said we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. He called it a patriotic revolution. But there was no External Revenue Service. There were no dividend checks, just empty promises and higher prices at home. Now the Supreme Court is about to make that clear. And Trump knows it. That's why he's trying to rewrite the story before the decision drops. He wants his followers to believe that when he loses, it's because of wrong numbers, or bad lawyers, or a corrupt court. He wants to turn a legal defeat into another martyr moment. But deep down, he understands this isn't about politics. It's about law, and law doesn't bend to ego. If the court rules against him, the government will have to figure out how to reimburse the billions collected under the illegal tariffs. The easiest solution is a tax credit, spreading refunds across taxpayers or importers. That would satisfy Justice Barrett's question about how to unwind it. But for Trump, the damage is irreversible. He built his political narrative on being the guy who won the trade war. And now the legal system is about to confirm that he was fighting a war against his own people's wallets. There's a larger meaning here too. For years, Trump has tested the boundaries of presidential power, invoking emergency authorities to do things Congress refused to authorize. He used those powers for border walls, for tariffs, for travel bans, for whatever his political moment demanded. But the Supreme Court's conservative majority is signaling that even they have limits. They don't want to set a precedent where a future president, Democrat or Republican, can bypass Congress entirely. That's the heart of this case. It's not just about money. It's about the architecture of American democracy. And that's why this moment matters. Trump's meltdown isn't just personal panic. It's a glimpse into how authoritarian habits die, not with a bang, but with a rant at 12:37 a.m. He still believes he can bully the system with emotion. He still thinks every loss can be spun into a grievance. But the courts aren't social media. They don't care about his slogans. They care about facts, precedent, and constitutional boundaries. For Trump, that realization is devastating. For the rest of America, it's long overdue. He thought the justices he appointed would protect him forever. He thought the law could be twisted to fit his image. He thought power was loyalty. But loyalty ends where legality begins. Even his own judges, Barrett, Roberts, Gorsuch, are drawing that line. So here we are, watching a man unravel in real time, blaming his allies, confessing his weakness, admitting that a single Supreme Court decision could collapse a $3 trillion illusion. It's a rare thing to see a politician expose his own defeat before it's official. But that's what Trump just did. He revealed his plan. If he loses, blame everyone else. Claim, sabotage, and turn a loss into grievance. It's the same pattern we've seen in every arena: elections, trials, indictments. Always someone else's fault. The truth, though, is much simpler. He built a presidency on shortcuts. He used emergency powers like a credit card with no limit. And now the bill is due. The Supreme Court will decide whether the Constitution still means what it says, that only Congress can tax the American people. And when that decision comes down, no rant, no Truth Social post, no midnight blame game will change the outcome.